In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Most people think that arriving late to church is merely a matter of time management. You walk in while the hymns are being sung, take your seat, and tell yourself, well, at least I'm here. But in the spiritual realm, something much deeper is taking place every time you arrive late to church. The first thing that happens when you arrive late to church is that you dishonor a divine appointment between you and God, one that heaven has already taken seriously. You see, church is not merely a worship service. It is a standing appointment that God Himself has set with His people. When you come to church, God does not focus on you merely as a group. He interacts with you personally as an individual. This means He considers the worship incomplete without your presence. You might think your lateness does not matter because others are already at church. But in God's eyes, it does matter because you are a part of that church. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. Heaven views this as something significant, not a matter of chance. When a service begins, God is already present, and so are the angels. When you arrive late, especially if it is a habit, your actions declare, "My time is more important than God's time. God can wait." You might never say this aloud, but lateness serves as a form of non-verbal communication. If you had a face-to-face meeting with a president, you would arrive early. If you had a life-changing job interview, you would prepare thoroughly. Yet the King of Kings calls a meeting with His children, and many arrive halfway through, saying, "At least I showed up." Heaven does not look favorably upon this. It interprets such behavior as misplaced honor. Of course, there are days when something goes seriously wrong and you cannot arrive on time. God is not a harsh timekeeper looking to punish the occasional mishap. But when lateness becomes a habit, your mind adopts an attitude that God can always come second. And that attitude will not be limited to your Sundays. It will seep into your prayer life, your obedience, and your daily choices. For the way you treat His house often reflects the way you treat His voice. The second thing that happens in the spiritual realm when you arrive late to church is that you miss the spiritual opening of the doors and arrive after certain doors have already been unlocked for others. Every service has a kind of spiritual trajectory. In many gatherings, the praise at the beginning is not a musical warm-up, it is the opening of the doors. Psalm 100, verse 4. These are not merely poetic words, they are a protocol. Thanksgiving and praise are the means by which we access certain spiritual realms. Often, right at the start of a service, hearts are softened, atmospheres are transformed, and burdens are lightened. People arrive carrying heavy loads, and as they praise, that weight begins to melt away. God is already at work right at the threshold. Some of the strongholds you seek to break during the sermon were meant to be weakened during those very first moments of praise. When you arrive late, you step into worship halfway through, still carrying a weight that others have already laid down at the door. They have already repented. They have already wept during worship. They have already received strength. Yet you have just arrived with a hurried heart and a distracted mind. In the spiritual realm, the devil loves this. He knows that if he can keep you outside when the doors open, you will feel like you are lagging behind in God's presence. Everyone else seems to connect quickly. You always need extra time to catch up because you missed the part God designed to prepare your heart. What you miss at the door will follow you into the courts. Yes, God can touch you at any moment. Yes, He is merciful. But you cannot fully measure what you have lost by not being there when thanksgiving and praise began. The third thing that happens in the spiritual realm when you arrive late to church is that you weaken the unity God intends to use as a channel for corporate blessing. Psalm 133, 1-3 says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. For that is where the Lord commands the blessing." Unity is not merely everyone being in the same building. It is everyone moving in the same spirit. When the church begins, worships, prays, and listens together, something very powerful takes place in the spiritual realm. There is a blessing ordained upon that unity. When you and many others are constantly late, the church gathers in a fragmented way. Half the people are present, the other half are trickling in. Children are moving about, and the greeters are distracted. The room is physically full, but spiritually scattered. The dynamic has to constantly reset to accommodate latecomers. What should have been a powerful wave turns into numerous small ripples, broken in spirit. When you are always late, you are always out of formation. The army has already been called to attention. Ah, there you are. Yet you are still putting on your shoes. The devil cannot easily stop a united church, so instead he keeps it in disarray. Your lateness may seem insignificant, but in the spiritual realm, it is yet another sign that the army has not yet fully aligned itself. And where that formation is broken, the impact is weaker. Over time, habits shape your inner posture. If you are always late for church, your heart begins to think, I can just show up halfway through and get by. You learn to settle for leftovers. You learn to spiritually eavesdrop on what God is doing, rather than sitting fully at his table. Ephesians 5:16 says, Redeem the time, because the days are evil. Time is not neutral. It is a spiritual currency. When you fail to redeem it, something else lays claim to it. The enemy does not need to stop you from going to church. He only needs to keep you from being present when it matters most. In your spirit, your lateness creates a pattern. You are always almost there, almost on time, almost aligned, almost in the flow. And eventually, that word almost begins to manifest in other areas of your life, almost obeying, almost fully repentant, almost surrendered to God, almost stepping into your calling. If you keep arriving late to the house of God, you will begin to lag behind regarding the will of God. It is not just about a single Sunday. Make it your goal to be there before the service begins, not just as it is starting. Speak honestly to God and say, Lord, forgive me for treating your house lightly. Help me to be where you are calling me to be. The purpose of this teaching is to instruct and remind us of what our three Holy Fathers taught us. If we respect and honor God, He in turn will take care of us, for He is the master of time and circumstances. May God bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.